Democrats might split with Chuck Schumer over the shutdown. Jimmy Kimmel's wife splits with her family over Donald Trump. And a 34-year-old woman who split with her boyfriend wants to sue him for stealing the best years of her life. I'm Michael Knowles. This is The Michael Knowles Show. Welcome back to the show. Nike has hired a non-binary furry to sell athletic wear to gamers. Is that a Mad Lib? Did they just fill in blank hires a blank to... Yeah, that's what happened. There's a lot to get to, as you can see. First, I want to tell you about Birch Gold. Text Knowles, K-N-O-W-L-E-S, to 989898. It's the one time of year that Birch Gold Group gives away free gold with every qualifying purchase. That's right. You know, that's actually my favorite kind of gold. Some people like coins. Some people like bars. Some people like ETFs. My favorite kind of gold is free gold. For Black Friday, when you convert an existing IRA or 401k into a tax-sheltered IRA in gold, Birch Gold will send free gold to your home for every $20,000 purchased. Now, gold started this year, I think it was around $2,600 an ounce. By October, it was over $4,000 an ounce. Why? Global uncertainty. 2025 has been defined by trade wars, central banks pulling from the US dollar as the global reserve currency, military tension continuing to build. Gold thrives in times of uncertainty. If you are looking to diversify your savings, Birch Gold can help you. Plus, now through November 28th, get free gold with a qualifying purchase. Just text my name, Knowles, K-N-O-W-L-E-S, to 989898. Claim your eligibility and for a free info kit on gold. But your opportunity for free gold with purchase ends on November 28th, so do not wait. Text Knowles, K-N-O-W-L-E-S, to the number 989898 for full details. The shutdown is ending. We talked about it yesterday. The Senate voted. 8 Senate Democrats went over with the Republicans. They got the 60 votes. Then it goes to the House. Then the government will reopen. Okay. Why did they do it? They did it because Trump was threatening to nuke the filibuster. And I know there were squishy Republicans who said, no, we can't nuke the filibuster. No, we can't do it. The reason that the 8 Democrats moved over to the Republican side is because Donald Trump threatened to nuke the filibuster and Republicans were serious about it. I made an argument at the live show with Megyn Kelly that the time has come. I really like the filibuster, but politics is about applying eternal principles to changing circumstances. And the circumstances are such that if that government shutdown had gone on for one more day, it was time to do it. And the Democrats still will probably want to nuke the filibuster the next time they're in power. That's what moved it. So the Democrats' hands were really forced here. And now they look terrible because they didn't really achieve anything. They didn't achieve anything at all. I shouldn't say that. They won some elections in Virginia. The shutdown did help them do that. They changed the political conversation away from crime in the cities, for instance, a big Democrat problem. So it achieved that. It's not that it literally achieved nothing. It didn't achieve any of the political ends that they were promising to achieve. And so they look bad. Add on to that, it was the longest government shutdown ever. 41 days, 42 days and counting. It's bad. They said, we're not going to reopen the government until Republicans give us more subsidies for our failing Obamacare policy. And Trump said no. And they said, okay, uncle. And there will be political consequences for that. You are now seeing widespread calls for Chuck Schumer to step down as the Democrat leader in the Senate. And it's not just from the total kooks. Ro Khanna, who is a relatively serious Democrat congressman. I'm grading on a curve because I don't think they're a really serious Democrat congressman. But relative to the rest of the party, Ro Khanna is a pretty serious figure. He comes out, he says, Senator Schumer is no longer effective and should be replaced. If you can't lead the fight to stop healthcare premiums from skyrocketing for Americans, what will you fight for? So he's going to deny till he dies. You know, he's still keeping a straight face on this. Government shutdown was about improving healthcare for Americans, even though the healthcare policy that failed was the Obamacare policy. So there's no reason to believe the Democrats would do any better this time. In any case, he says, Schumer promised that this is what was going to happen. He led the shutdown. The shutdown failed. On its policy grounds and even politically, it largely failed because the public blamed Democrats for the shutdown, not Republicans. First time ever in our lifetimes. Gavin Newsom, one of the front runners for 2028 on the Democrat side, he just tweets out pathetic. Then you get Chris Murphy, Democrat in the Senate. Here is how he told his constituents that the shutdown was likely going to end.
The vote hasn't closed, but it looks like 8 Democrats have joined Republicans to vote for a temporary reopening of the government for about 2 months, but a bill with no protections to stop the coming healthcare disaster in this country caused by Donald Trump's premium increases, nor any provisions to meaningfully stop Trump's corruption and his illegality. You can see how tired I am. I've been here all weekend. I've been working throughout the past few weeks to try to prevent this moment.
Repulsive. This is repulsive. Why is a member of the United States Senate sitting there on camera whining about his feels? Why, first of all, why is he sitting there without a jacket on, his rumpled little shirt, his tie askew, his button undone at the top, which my button's undone at the top too, but I'm not wearing a tie. Sitting there, oh, guys, I've been working so hard. I haven't even shaved. I've been working so hard, and I failed. And, this isn't the first time he's done this. He sent out a tweet, Chris Murphy. This was back in March. And I remember reading this, and I said, this is repulsive in a political leader. He tweets out, he goes, hey, I just got home. Tough effing day. I'm going to go live on Instagram in a few minutes to say why I voted no on some bill. Actually, it was actually over basically the same issue, a government funding bill. This is so degrading. This is degrading to the U.S. Senate, which has already been degraded quite a lot in recent years. You're a grown man. Forget that you're a political leader. You're a grown man. Sit up straight, button your shirt, pull up your tie, put a jacket on, and stop whining about. I don't want to hear about oh, your emotions are kind of hurt because I was going to try to do something in my job and I'm a failure. So freaking lame. Sorry, it's a little bit of a side rant, but I think he is voicing the view of the Democrat Party, which is we failed. And at least guys like Ro Khanna and Gavin Newsom have the dignity to be angry about it instead of just depressed and sad and squishy. In any case, they failed. And that failure might have political consequences. It could cost Chuck Schumer his job. And broadly speaking, what you're seeing is a generational shift. Some of these guys are ancient. The Senate leaders, the House leaders, Nancy Pelosi just announced that she was going to retire after more than 60 years in politics. You're seeing a new generation of Democrats rise up, and they're much more radical. You have the Muslim communist in New York, who's now the mayor. You have, of course, AOC and Jasmine Crockett and Ilhan Omar, and the list goes on and on and on. What you are seeing in this shutdown is not just one more political battle, usual kind of stuff, in this case, a tactical loss for the Democrats. What you are seeing is a political party that is completely exasperated, completely exhausted. The government shutdown itself was a desperate Hail Mary pass. That's what it was. They were losing on every issue other than healthcare. They were a little bit above water on healthcare. So they said, okay, let's shut down the government, try to shift the conversation to healthcare. That didn't really work. They shifted the conversation away from some of their failures like crime in the cities, but people are not really talking about healthcare in as much as they're largely blaming the Democrats because it was the Democrats' healthcare law that failed. This is an exhausted party. And when the party gets exhausted, they get desperate, and that's how you see things like political violence in the streets, the justification of political violence, calls for a shift in the leadership of the party. Chuck Schumer, even if he doesn't step down as minority leader in the Senate, he could lose a Senate seat to AOC next go around if AOC herself doesn't run for president. There is also a lot of turmoil on the Republican side. You're seeing a a spike in the perennial Republican civil war between the more traditional conservatives and the neoconservatives, between a generational fight, the younger conservatives and the older conservatives. But that hasn't led to an exhausted party because you have vitality in the leadership of Trump. The Republican Party was exhausted in 2015. Trump injected life into it. And even though Trump is of a certain age, the guy's got more energy than just about anyone. He never seems to sleep. He's always going. He exhausts the much younger reporters and staffers around him. And you have vitality in J.D. Vance, who accommodates new ideas, who promotes new ideas within the party, responds to changing circumstances, but also is able to maintain some moderation and cohesion, bring other people along, keep that coalition together. So the Republican Party is much healthier right now. There are dangers, but it's much healthier right now than the Democrats, who are ready to politically decapitate their leadership. All of this is leading rank and file Dems of various profiles, private citizens and also public figures, to pull their hair out, to whine and cry on TV, to even sever relationships with their families, as we see with Jimmy Kimmel and his apparently unbalanced wife. We'll get to that momentarily. First, I want to tell you about Lumen. Go to lumen.me/Knowles. Did you know that when your metabolism is working properly, you will feel the benefits in every aspect of your life? I have a valuable tool that can give me insights to create a healthy metabolism for my body. It is called Lumen. I love Lumen because it is easy. It is the world's first handheld metabolic coach that measures your metabolism just by breathing into it. Each morning, one breath tells me whether I am burning fat or carbs, and the app creates a personalized nutrition plan for my day based on that reading. And the thing is, you don't actually need to listen to the nutrition plan. You know, if you want to just be like a big fat glutton, that's fine too. But it'll just give you the information. You can check in before and after meals or workouts, see what's going on in your body in real time. Lumen will give you tailored tips to optimize your nutrition, your workouts, your sleep, your stress management. It's great. And if you're like me and then you don't work out and you don't sleep that well, whatever, at least you can know. It's that simple. I'm all about simplicity when it comes to technology. Lumen is amazing. I love it. Just breathe into it. Gives you all the info. Your metabolism is your body's engine. It's how you turn food into fuel. Since it's at the center of everything your body does, healthy metabolism means easier weight management, better energy, all the rest. Winter is the perfect season to build strength from within. Stay energized, stay resilient, take charge of your metabolism. Lumen.me/Knowles. Get an additional 10% off your Lumen, lumen.me/Knowles, 10% off on top of any offers or sales running on their website. Jimmy Kimmel's wife has just spilled the tea on how she and her husband have had to cut ties. They haven't had to. They have chosen to cut ties with their family. This right before Thanksgiving, right before Christmas, because some of their family members voted for Donald Trump.
There's like a little bit of sympathy I have for people in my family that I feel are kind of being deliberately misinformed every day. Mm-hmm. And they're deliberately being misinformed every day. Mm-hmm. And they believe it. But it hurts me so much because of the personal relationship I now have, where my husband is out there fighting this man. And to me, them voting for Trump is them not voting for my husband and me and our family. And I unfortunately have kind of lost relationships with people in my family because of it. Mm-hmm. This is not just Republican versus Democrat for me anymore. Mm-hmm. It is, to me, it's family values. I feel like I'm kind of in constant conflict and I'm angry all the time, which isn't healthy.
Poor Jimmy Kimmel. Let's hope that Jimmy Kimmel's life improves. He clearly made a big mistake, and he continues to make a mistake because he's not husbanding his wife. What she is saying is not just some fringe, crazy Hollywood wife nonsense. What she is saying, I think, typifies the Democrat Party right now. First, let's get to the first thing she says. She says, it's like these people, they're being misled. Okay, so I have some sympathy for the conservatives because they're being misinformed all the time. Then Jimmy chimes in. His wife finally lets him open his mouth. She says, they're being misinformed. Jimmy Kimmel came out on his show the day after Charlie Kirk was murdered, and he strongly insinuated that the killer was a MAGA Republican. The suspect is a furry dating a trans furry. He's a gay guy who wrote "Catch This Fascist" on the bullet and who, in his own writing, explained his far left motivations for murdering Charlie, the most prominent promoter of civil debate on the American right. Jimmy Kimmel comes out on his show, says, yeah, it was a MAGA Republican. And Jimmy Kimmel has the audacity to say, these conservatives are being misinformed. If they're being misinformed, they're being misinformed by you, not that any of them are watching your stupid show. The wife then goes on and she says, yeah, it's just, some of them, they voted for Trump. And so I've lost relationships with them. Listen to the passive voice, ever the victim. I don't mean to beat up on her too much. I think the Democrats, I think the left broadly feels this way. I've lost relationships with them. Let's be a little more specific. You have severed relationships with your family. You have disowned your family because some of them voted for the president, the man who won not only the electoral vote, but the popular vote. Because some of your family members voted for the man that most Americans voted for in one of the two major political parties in the United States for 170 years, you have severed relationships with your family. Why? Why has she done that? The right doesn't do that. The left does that. Why has she done that? Well, she says, it's because it just kind of felt like if you're voting for Trump, you're voting against me and my husband and my family. I hear this from Democrats. I hear this from libs, especially the ones who love to make some random identity group they're the central part of who they are. They say, well, if you vote for me, or rather, if you vote for Trump, you're voting against trans rights. You're voting against me. You're voting against gay rights. You're voting against black rights or Mexican rights or I don't know, whatever. Never mind that Trump won an historically high number of the black vote, black male vote, and of Hispanics. And never mind. That's what they say. For the Kimmels, this is exaggerated because they're public figures. So maybe let's be really charitable to her. She's saying, look, my husband is in a very public fight with Donald Trump. So it's not just, you voted against me by voting for Trump because I'm a private citizen. No. Kimmel and Trump are in a very public feud. And so if you side with Trump, you're siding against my husband in this big public fight, even though my husband doesn't hold office. Even there, I'm reminded that James Carville and Mary Matlin are married. Do you know that some of the younger listeners will not remember this? James Carville was the chief strategist of Bill Clinton's 1992 presidential campaign. Mary Matlin was a top aide to George H.W. Bush. They met during the campaign and they got married. And they're still married. They're one of the strongest marriages in all of politics. Not only two people whose views are diametrically opposed, but two people who actually ran presidential campaigns against each other. So it's not just a political problem. It's not just the fact that some of her family is on the other side. It's a her problem. It's a Jimmy Kimmel problem. It is a current 2025 liberal Democrat problem. They refuse to get along with more than half the country. We get along with them. We tolerate them. We don't disinvite them from Thanksgiving and Christmas. They refuse to get along with us. And there's very little we can do about that. You can lead a horse to water. In battles, your opponent has a say. We do our best. But for any of the Democrats watching this show, I know there are plenty of Democrats and liberals who watch this show. Maybe Mrs. Kimmel watches the show. I don't know. It would probably behoove you to at least consider the possibility that all that anger you feel, all that constant frustration, the impulse to divorce your family who raised you, who loves you, who is nice to you, the fact that you feel that all of a sudden and that you're starting to do that and you're the one whose behavior is changing, that might be a you problem. And maybe the ultimate cause of your anger is not Trump It's not the Trump voters. It's not J.D. Vance. It's not. Maybe it's something a little deeper with you. Maybe you are perceiving politics incorrectly. Maybe you have a spiritual problem. Maybe you have a severe dearth of charity. Maybe you're a little too self-obsessed if you think that casting a presidential ballot is about you or your husband or whatever. Maybe you need to work on yourself. And maybe you need to recognize you have a big problem. Maybe you need to ask for God's help and cooperate with his grace. Maybe you need to do that. That's my message. Not just to Mrs. Kimmel, though I would appreciate if someone would send this to her too. It would help her. But it's to all the Democrats, many of whom are feeling this way. Look at the surveys. Very liberal people, 8 times as likely to justify political violence as very conservative people. 26% of young liberals justifying political violence. It's a big, broad problem. Within a political party, what had been the major political party in the United States, that is exhausted, that is exasperated, that doesn't know what it believes on any issue, that doesn't have any leaders, that doesn't have a presidential frontrunner for the first time in a quarter century, that doesn't know where to go from here. Rather than just get angrier and angrier and angrier and become more and more irrational and maybe even get violent, rather than do that, maybe just take a breather and recognize maybe something's wrong with you. And maybe turn to the people who have cared for you and who loved you, maybe your family that you want to disown, and ask them for a little bit of help. That's just my thought in the spirit of Thanksgiving, which is coming up. Speaking of family, really important article I read in The Telegraph. Really important article. I encourage you all to read it. My ex stole my childbearing years. Does he owe me anything? Our devastated reader wants to be compensated for broken promises. Woman dates a guy for 10 years. She's 34. He up and leaves her. She wants to sue him. All those lost years. Maybe she can use the money to pay to freeze her eggs or get IVF or something like that. We'll get to that in one moment. First, though, speaking of money, I want to tell you about Shopify. Go to shopify.com/Knowles. I've started a number of businesses over the years. And man, oh man, if I only had Shopify when I started. Shopify is the commerce platform behind millions of businesses around the world, 10% of all e-commerce in the US. We even use it for our own DailyWire shop to make sure things are running smoothly and efficiently, I should say, so you get all the goods. Now, you might be asking, what if I can't design a website? You know, what if my HTML is a little weak? What if I'm worried people haven't heard about my brand? No problem. Shopify's got you covered from the start with beautiful, ready-to-go templates that match your brand's style and help you find customers through easy-to-run email and social media campaigns. If you need a hand with everyday tasks, their AI tools created specifically for commerce can help enhance product images, write descriptions, and more. Plus, their award-winning customer support is available 24/7 to share advice if you ever get stuck. Turn your big business idea into with Shopify on your side. Sign up for your $1 per month trial and start selling today at shopify.com/Knowles, K-N-O-W-L-E-S. Shopify.com/Knowles, K-N-O-W-L-E-S. Shopify.com/Knowles. My ex stole my childbearing years. Does he owe me? This is another widespread problem. This is not just about this woman writing into the Telegraph. I know plenty of women who feel this way, who have been dating and clocks ticking and they get to a certain age and they say, oh my goodness, time's running out to get married, to have kids. And I've been dating this guy forever, but he was a total schlub and he either left me or he doesn't want to get married or he doesn't want to have kids. And shoot, man, I'm running out of options. Here's what this lady says. I'll just read a few little pieces. He tells me that he feels at 38 as though he still has a decade of enjoying his lifestyle and powering through with his career and is not ready for marriage and children. He's 38 years old. He's not ready for marriage and children. He's just got to find himself, you know. He's got to do more drugs and like work a little more and go to more nightclubs, and then he'll be ready. He knows that marriage and children have become a priority for me. So he's off. That's it. He's 38, she's 34. They've dated for 10 years. But he just has more exploring to do. You know, he just wants to prioritize him. And so he's out. Here I am at 34, eggs twitching, ready for the marriage and parenthood stage of life, but unexpectedly single and emotionally devastated. I am tipping into the furious phase of the grief cycle because I feel as though he owes me big time and I want him to pay. The woman then goes on to explain that she also made career sacrifices, to prioritize her ex-boyfriend. You know, he had career ambitions, and she let her career take a backseat for her ex-boyfriend. Totally normal thing to do if you're a wife and it's for your husband. A little bit of a worse idea if you guys are not married and you're just shacking up. But they had verbally agreed that he would be the chief breadwinner when they had children. But, you know, it was a verbal agreement, nothing on paper, no marriage certificate. You know, sometimes people say, oh, who needs a piece of paper? Oh, who needs to get married? That's just a matter for the state. No, we're just going to date indefinitely. Well, here's why. Here's one reason why, at least. Well, we had a verbal agreement. See how that holds up in court. So she concludes, now I feel like these compromises have left me vulnerable and I'm seeking compensation. Surely he should have some responsibility for helping me mitigate the damage to our plans caused by his change of heart and broken promises. Well, I really feel for this woman. I really feel for her. She made a lot of bad choices. She never should have dated this guy for 10 years. She never should have thought that 34 is the time to start thinking about if you want to settle down and have kids. She should have thought about that when she started dating him at age 24, frankly. And obviously she has no legal recourse here. But I feel for her also because in the old days, you would have said, look, now she has no legal recourse. But if they had been married, they actually would have had a contract. And if he broke that contract, she would be able to take him to the cleaners. In some places, yeah, maybe. But actually, divorce has been liberalized over the last 60 years, largely driven by the feminists. But divorce has been liberalized. And most of the people who initiate the divorces are women. So I guess the feminists feel like that's a victory. But in this case, if the guy had just left her, she could have challenged the divorce. She could have refused to give him a divorce in the old days. She could have forced him to stay in the marriage. Or, at the very least, she could have taken him for a lot of money. So now, you know, it's easy to say, well, they just should have gotten married. And then if he decided to leave, she would have had some legal options. But frankly, with no-fault divorce, you don't really have as many options. You can dissolve marriage. It is degraded marriage to the point that marriage is kind of like being boyfriend and girlfriend. And so is it any wonder that people think that being boyfriend and girlfriend is basically the same thing as marriage? It's not. It's not. And she's tragically finding out how very different those things are. So I looked at some of the responses. And you're going to hear this from people on the right. I know there are going to be people on the right, not just on the left, not just the feminists. There are going to be people on the right who say, she's a grown woman. Her mistake. She was dumb. She made her bed. She can lie in it. Why do I care? She doesn't get to take him to the cleaners for this. She doesn't get to sue him. She literally doesn't get to sue him. But what she does is ridiculous. I don't feel bad for her. She made her choices. She's a grown woman. Here, I'll just read verbatim. One tweeter. Women are either adults with agency or they're not. There's no middle ground. Another one. Accountability matters. You make your own choices, and those choices have consequences. You chose that person, so no one owes you anything for the decisions you freely made. So what is the conservative view of that? What's my view of this? Sorry, I disagree with that. I know that there's a kind of red pill bro contingent that says, oh, these women, you know, come on, they're grown adults. They need to make their own decisions. Accountability matters. Either women are accountable grown adults or they're not. I don't see it that way. Some people who misunderstand things are going to accuse me of being a little bit lib or like a little bit feminist because I am largely on the woman's side in this case. But I promise you, the reason that I'm largely on the woman's side in this case has nothing to do with feminism. It is actually the exact opposite of feminism. And I think it's the red pill bros who really share the same view as the feminists, ultimately. Yeah, I think it's the red pill bros who say men and women are exactly the same. And so men and women need to be held to exactly the same standards when it comes to decision-making, accountability, relationships. They need to be held to the exact same standards. And that's a anthropology. That's feminist. It's liberal. It's the view that says that men and women are exactly the same. This line, someone says, accountability matters. Accountability matters. You make your choices. You suck it up, lady. Yeah, I know you followed this guy around for a while and he used you and then left you high and dry. But accountability matters. It reminded me of that great line from the movie As Good as It Gets, the Jack Nicholson line. Jack Nicholson plays a writer and he's asked by this woman fangirling him all gaga over him, says, how do you write women so well?
How do you write women so well?
I think of a man,
And I take away reason and accountability.
Show me the lie. No, listen. The red pill bros don't take this woman's side because a lot of them actually hate women. They actually just don't really like women. I am taking the woman's side because I really like women. I love women. I think women are great. But look at the irony here. It's the kind of red pill bro reaction that says, this woman needs to be accountable because men and women are exactly the same. They need to be held to exactly the same standard. And me, someone who loves women, my explanation is, now men and women are not the same. And they can't really be held to the same standards because women are not as reasonable and accountable. Certainly when it comes to relationships. I know, and they're going to say that's misogynistic. That's how dare you. That's sexist. It is what it is. I don't know what to tell you. Women are not as reasonable and accountable. Certainly when it comes to relationships. They're not. That's why the Jack Nicholson line hit. That's why it's one of the most famous movie lines of the last 30 years. And that's a lovely thing about them. Look, everyone agrees with me, ultimately. Because, let me ask you a question. Is it okay to hit a woman? When I was a kid, I was brought up to be told it's not okay to hit a woman. The liberals, weirdly enough, were raised to think that it is okay to hit a woman. So much so that now you have liberal politicians literally arguing in deliberations over laws that it is okay for men to punch women in boxing, in UFC, and they say it's okay because men and women are basically the same. Men and women are the same. That's feminism. That's the gay movement. That's the trans movement. It's all the same premise. Men and women are the same. I don't think they're the same. And I think that men have a responsibility to lead their households. And I think that when a man leads a woman on for 10 years, yeah, there's really nothing a woman can do about that. But that's a problem. And that's a political problem. And it's why we should discourage fornication. It's why we should discourage adultery and hookup culture and all these other things. It's why we should promote marriage. It's why we need a serious definition of marriage. It's why we need to restrain divorce laws. It's why we need to get rid of excuses like no-fault divorce that in many ways render the institution of marriage meaningless. It's why we need to make sure that, it's why we need to overrule Obergefell, for instance, and remind everyone that marriage involves both men and women. You need one of each. It's kind of like the essential nature of marriage. How right-wing are you? How trad are you? How classical are you? How based are you? Do you think men and women are the same or not? If you think they're different, then you have to behave that way. And the irony of ironies is that we're told if you really love women, you have to treat men and women exactly the same. And yet I notice it is the most practically misogynistic people in the country who argue that men and women are the same. It's the ones who want to force giant dudes into your little girl's changing room and allow men to beat up women in a boxing ring. Those are the ones who these people who hate women, or even people on the right who clearly have a deep hostility to women. They're the ones saying men and women are the same, treat them the same. And the people who love women, who actually love women, they're the ones who are acknowledging reality. She's not going to get money from, she shouldn't freeze her eggs, she shouldn't do IVF. I feel for her, and she shouldn't do morally dubious or immoral things. But I feel for her. And if we love women and we want to make them happier, we got to acknowledge reality. There's that study came out of Yale, I think it was 2008, The Paradox of Declining Female Happiness. Since feminism, women's happiness has declined in absolute terms and relative to the happiness of men. Got to change course if you like women. Is it okay to hit women? I say no, because they're different. Okay, speaking of marriage, big update on the Supreme Court, whether or not they're going to overrule gay marriage. We have fewer than 2,000 DailyWire lifetime memberships remaining. Turns out having all access benefits for life with no renewals is something everyone wants. So here are your options. You could buy one while they're still available, or you could win mine. That's right. I have my very own lifetime membership to give away, and I made it ridiculously easy to enter. You download the free DailyWire Plus app in the App Store, open it, tap follow under my picture, and that's it. You're entered. That's it. You just go to the app, you look for the most handsome visage you can find, and who knows, I could be calling you to give you my personal lifetime membership. Before any of that happens, you need to download the DailyWire Plus app and follow me inside it to win. My favorite comment yesterday is from Sal Sagev N3S, who said, Senator Schumer never makes the same mistake twice. He makes it 5 or 6 times, just to be sure. That is Senator John Kennedy. Actually, the comment just said Senator Kennedy. I said, wait, Teddy Kennedy hit him like that? He hit Schumer? I said, no, it's Senator John Kennedy, who has the best one-liners of anybody in the U.S. Senate. Turning from the Senate to the Supreme Court, I mentioned yesterday on the show that on Friday, the Supreme Court deliberated over whether or not they were going to hear an appeal from this woman, Kim Davis, who is a county clerk who refused to issue same-sex marriage licenses. This would be a case that could trigger the overruling of Obergefell, which created a constitutional right to same-sex marriage. And I said, look, the court is probably not going to hear this case. Right now, there's still too much popular support. There's 54% popular support for same-sex marriage in the U.S., but that number has declined, and it will continue to decline. And whether or not they hear this case this time, they will hear it eventually. They will hear some case like this eventually. They will overrule Obergefell eventually because it's totally contrary to nature. So the Supreme Court decided shortly after my show came out to reject this appeal, to overturn Obergefell. Okay, I'm not surprised at all. It's going to be a long road. I also mentioned on the show yesterday that it took almost 50 years for Roe v. Wade to be overruled, but it was overruled eventually because the Roe v. Wade decision, followed up by Planned Parenthood v. Casey, which undermined the reasoning of Roe v. Wade, but upheld the object of it, which was a national license to abortion, supposedly in the Constitution. That was just ridiculous. It was ridiculous on textualist grounds. It was ridiculous on originalist grounds. It was ridiculous on moral grounds, natural law grounds. It was ridiculous, and it was contrary to reality. There is no right to slaughter kids. There just isn't. And the same principle is true for Obergefell. There is no right to same-sex marriage. There is no such thing as same-sex marriage. And there's certainly no right to it. And there's certainly no right to it in the Constitution. Do you think when Alexander Hamilton and James Madison and John Jay are writing The Federalist, do you think in the back of their minds was the notion that two fellas were going to go get a marriage certificate and then go to the baby store and buy kids, create designer babies? And I don't think so. That would have been ridiculous. It was ridiculous in 2014. The notion of same-sex marriage, Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton ran against it in 2008. It's preposterous. The only reason it exists is because Justice Kennedy, there's so many Kennedys in our government, Justice Kennedy, Anthony Kennedy, in Obergefell, decided to write some romantic poetry and say that there is a secret right to intimacy in the Constitution. A right that I have not seen anywhere in the Constitution, but even if there were such a right, Antonin Scalia beautifully wrote in his dissent, he said, even if there were a right to intimacy in the Constitution, marriage restricts rather than expands the right to intimacy. Ask the nearest hippie. So it's just preposterous all around. And reality will reassert itself in the end. And maybe sooner than later. Because politics is shifting very quickly. Because the Democrat Party is completely exhausted, doesn't know where to go from here. And the right is in the midst of a civil war to figure out what its future is going to be. And things might happen quickly. Now, speaking of weird sex stuff, Nike has hired a non-binary furry to sell athletic wear to gamers. Weren't we done with this? Isn't that over? That headline is very 2023 energy. I thought, get woke, go broke. What happened to... They hired someone, what's this guy's name? Sonic. It's like a Sonic the Hedgehog kind of thing. But anyway, it's some weird looking dude sitting in a gamer chair with a big creepy sex mask on and some Nike gear, I guess, and then really, really short shorts, only slightly covering his big, fat, hairy, disgusting legs. It's just the whole thing is gross. I don't mean to body shame, but all men should cover up. I don't want short shorts on any man, and I don't want to see your gross hairy legs, and it's gross. The whole thing's disgusting. However, I guess I will break with all my fellow conservatives in that I get why Nike did this. Nike did this because Nike's business has been failing relative to its competitors like Adidas. Adidas has been eating Nike's lunch. So Nike had to do something to change its fortunes. And one way it was going to do that was lean into the gamer community, like video games. You think of Nike as being about like sports. Go outside, touch grass, run around, throw a ball. They were leaning into digital sports, video games. And video game culture is super creepy and weird. It is. I can see the comments now. I know. I mean no offense by that. Let all who have ears to hear, let them hear. Video game culture is creepy and weird and often kind of involves weird sex stuff. It just is. I don't have much firsthand experience of video game culture. I just know from what I read and what I hear, it's weird. It's not sports, you go out, it's some like Giga Chad who puts on, his uniform and throws the ball. He's got muscles, he's athletic, he's dating some hot chick who's normal. It's the exemplar of healthy, normal American culture. Is that the image you get from video gamers? That they're just in like really good shape, great health, with a really hot girlfriend, just like normal, that is not the image you have of that. And so Nike said, all right, well, we're going to try to get into video games to try to help us boost our sales. And if we want to get into video games, we're not going to go get the Giga Chad to be our spokesman. We're going to go get some weird sex freak, a non-binary. Sonic Fox is his name. Martine Rose collab Nike's latest campaign. Okay. It's in a way, it's a smart business decision. But here's the bigger problem. The bigger problem is not bringing weird sex stuff into Nike. The bigger problem is combining esports with real sports. They both have the word sports in it, I guess, but they're totally different things. That's going to be the big problem. And actual athletes and actual would-be athletes and actual hobbyists and guys who just like to throw a football every so often are not going to want to be associated with weird sex freaks. They're just not going to want to do that. That's the bigger issue. There is a cultural disconnect, not between the furries and the gamers. I bet most furries are gamers. I'm not saying most gamers are furries, but I think most furries are gamers. It's not that all rectangles are squares, but all squares are rectangles. And trying to combine that with Giga Chads doesn't make any sense. And so in the long run, it probably will hurt Nike. It's like they were just being a little too clever by half. Now, speaking of go woke, go broke, I don't know if people still watch South Park. Well, people do because they've had record high ratings this season. I watched South Park from episode 1, the second airing of episode 1 in 1998 or whenever it was. I watched a ton of South Park. I just generally don't watch TV, so I haven't seen South Park in a while. But I've always found it to be funny. Trey Parker, Matt Stone, really funny guys. But this year, they went really hard after Trump. And I watched one episode of it just to see it. And it was pretty funny, but they went really hard after Trump. This after skewering the woke for many years. That after, even in the 90s, they always had this kind of libertarian streak. They would make fun of conservatives sometimes, but they would really go after the left. I think it was Matt Stone said, look, we hate conservatives, but we really effing hate liberals. That was always their take. And so this season, they went really, really hard after the right. And now they've explained why. Trey Parker said, it's not that we got all political. It's that politics became pop culture. Because many seasons, they don't even really lean into political news, but this time they did. And Trey Parker's saying, no, it's not that we got triggered and got all political like Jimmy Kimmel's wife. We're the same guys. It's just that now everyone's just talking about politics all the time. That is the pop culture. And so we're reflecting that. As good satirists, we're reflecting that. Matt Stone said that the reason they went after Trump is because criticizing Trump started to feel taboo. And what South Park is all about is breaking taboos, for better and worse. That's what it's all about. And for most of the last 25 years, the taboos have all been set by the left. And so if you wanted to transgress the taboos, you were mostly making fun of the left. He said, now it started to feel like criticizing Trump was taboo, so we went after Trump. Matt Stone said, Trey and I are attracted to that like flies to honey. Oh, that's where the taboo is, over there? Okay, then we're over there. We just had to show our independence somehow. Okay. I know some conservatives were going after South Park for this. South Park famously parodied Charlie Kirk before he died, of course. And some conservatives went after them for that. I will say Charlie loved it. Charlie totally leaned into it. He thought it was hilarious. I think he changed his profile picture on social media to Cartman as Charlie Kirk. Like, it's cool. It's a great honor. And a lot of conservatives have really enjoyed South Park over the years. So I know some conservatives don't like that. To me, this is a sign of the times. This actually brings us right back to our first story about the shutdown and where the Democrats are. It is great. It is a great sign for conservatives that Trey Parker and Matt Stone are going after Trump because they feel that's where the taboos are, because that's where they feel that's where the mainstream culture is, because that's where they feel that's where the regime is. Because that means that conservatives have very serious political control and cultural control that we have not really had in my lifetime. That's great. That means that right now, the Republican Party has problems. There's a civil war. There's always a civil war, but it's really getting hot right now. And they're trying to figure out what the future is. What happens after Trump? Can J.D. Vance continue to lead this coalition? What's the coalition look like? Do we have to kick people out? Blah, blah, blah. It goes on forever. There's problems. But the Democrats are completely exhausted. And yes, they elected their Muslim communist in New York. And yes, they won some elections in Virginia. But they're running on empty right now. They don't know what they believe about what do they believe about tariffs? What do they believe about workers? What do they believe about migration? What do they believe about foreign policy? What do they believe? They don't know. They're split on everything. Who are their leaders? They don't have a presidential frontrunner. They might not have a leader in the Senate pretty soon. This is good stuff. I'll take it. When South Park skewers you, that is a good sign. It means that you have power. Okay, today is Tee Tuesday. The rest of the show continues now. You do not want to miss it. Become a member. Use code Knowles, Canada, WLAS, at checkout for 2 months free on all annual plans.